Hey guys, Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala here, and welcome to part 2 of our Intellivision tier ranking series. As I said in the previous video, this is far from a definitive list, but rather think of it as a neat exercise that may give you some insight into what games I'd recommend. As always, my opinions may not line up with yours, and that's okay. We're all different and we can still be friends. Today, we're checking out the offerings from Intellivision Collector. Intellivision Collector. So Intellivision Collector, what I've done is I've also added the Blah Blah Woof Woof games that were recently acquired by Intellivision Collector because Blah Blah Woof Woof is no longer publishing. And those ones are Space Bandits, Parsec, Lode Runner, and Buck Rogers. So, we're going to start from the start of the list here with Beachhead. Beachhead is a port of a computer game from the mid-'80s. It's the type of computer game that I would have really liked at the time. But now, and especially on the Intellivision, so it's split into four stages with an optional fifth stage. Dr. Volk says, remember, if you want to bump your game in the ratings, just use bribery. Bribery works, sure. This is just a fun experiment, so. Beachhead. The optional fifth stage is the torpedo stage, where you guide your ships through this kind of maze of torpedoes. I love that stage. The second last stage, or what you might consider the first half of the last stage, you're driving your tank on the beaches and trying to get to the fortress, and I love that stage. No, I'm not skipping the I'm not skipping the poker game, Mr. Baseman. I love that stage, and all the other stages are like calculating the angle of your artillery to hit whatever you're trying to shoot at. And those stages just feel like work. So for me, Beachhead definitely goes in that C category. It's not a bad game. It's not a game that I would be like, oh, you got to go out and get this. And personally, I'm just not a fan. You may disagree, and that is A-okay for you. And sorry, Intellivision gamer, Mr. Postal's favorite game is not going to make appearance because I don't believe there is an Intellivision homebrew port of Popeye. Buck Rogers. Okay. Buck Rogers. Cyrus, Super Graphics 64, Super Mega Graphics 64. It's going to be upset at me. I like Buck Rogers, the character. I like Buck Rogers, the universe. I don't like Buck Rogers, the game. I find it monotonous. It's a really straightforward shooter. You move back and forth, you move up and down, kind of, to dodge 3D enemies coming at you. Yeah, it's again not a bad port. None of these publishers make bad games. And yeah, Dr. Volk has the exact line. C is not a bad game, it's just not for me. And that's definitely where Buck Rogers goes. It's alright, but I don't, I'm not gonna be plugging it in when I'm looking for my shooter fix. There's definitely other better ones even coming up. Operation Cloudfire. Alright, our first S. Everybody should have Operation Cloudfire. Operation Cloudfire is a Metroidvania style game, and it does a really good job of setting that mood. Like, it even kind of feels like that gloomy Metroid mood. It's got great audio. It's got great atmosphere. The gameplay is solid. Must have for the Intellivision. I love Operation Cloudfire. I have not gotten around to doing a review of it yet. I'm looking forward to doing that. Jolt7800 says, it's amazing how many homebrews are on this system alone. There is a gentleman in the chat, Rev, Intellivision Revolution. He's published more games than all three of these guys put together, I believe. He's very, very prolific. So there are currently more homebrew games for the Intellivision than there are original games. The original system had 125. I think we're like at 160 homebrew games. All right, Dragon Quest. This is a port that doesn't really add anything. Aside from you can access certain actions with the keypad instead of having to go through a menu. And despite that, we have a second S. Dragon Quest, which on the NES was Dragon Warrior. And what's really funny is I saw on the Intellivision Homebrew Awards that Luke didn't know that in Japan, Dragon Warrior was called Dragon Quest. He just named it Dragon Quest. And certainly the series now is called Dragon Quest. They've just merged it. There's no Dragon Warrior anymore. So he had no idea that this was still, at least, from a title perspective, obviously from a game perspective, was still infringement. But it's just such a well-done port of the NES version of Dragon Warrior. It looks like Dragon Warrior. It plays like Dragon Warrior. It sounds just like Dragon Warrior. If I played it for you and you closed your eyes, you would think I was playing on the NES. And considering that the NES, well, the Famicom anyway, came out 5 years after the Intellivision did, and the Intellivision's able to do that game and do the full game and do it right, I can't say enough good things about Dragon Quest. Fox's Quest. So this is a game that I really liked when I got it. It's a decent port. It's not a perfect port, but it's a decent port. And I say it's a decent port because I have played games like this. It's a box pushing game where you have to get all the boxes to a certain area of the screen, and once you fill up that area of the screen, you advance to the next stage. And you got to make sure that you don't trap the boxes, and you want to do it in as few moves as possible. Yeah, sorry, Poe, you're not able to say that because Dragon's Quest is awesome. Fox's Quest, I found out later, all the levels from it are directly taken from another game. And that disappointed me. It's not a bad game. I mean, considering that, these other ports, obviously they take all their levels, but I thought it was original levels, because I had played games like this on my phone before, but I'd never played it on a console before. Now granted, what it took from was Japanese exclusive, so a lot of people out here, myself included, would be like, oh, this is a brand new game. And it did add the character elements, but this is one of those C+ ones for me. It's a good game. It ain't perfect, but yeah, we'll put it at B. I had fun playing it, and I had fun with the little cutscenes, and the fact that they make it so that you can play any level you want right from the get-go. You don't have to play through. Mr. Baseman wants an Intellivision again. Yeah, you gotta get an Intellivision, man. There's some good games. Oh, the one thing I will mention too, all of these games from Intellivision Collector are also available as purchase for ROMs. So, Mr. Baseman, even though you don't have an Intellivision, if you get Michael Hayes front end for JZINTV, or JZINTV if you're from the Great White North, eh? You could play all these games, no problem whatsoever, by purchasing the ROMs. Lock and Chase. Okay. I love Lock and Chase. I suck at Lock and Chase, but I love Lock and Chase. This is a physical release of the 8K version of Lock and Chase, which they chose not to release back in the day. The biggest difference, and it's advertised by this little starburst on the front cover, is that when you die, Lupin kind of shrinks and becomes just his hat. Cool piece of history. I'm glad it was released on a cart. But if you own the original Lock and Chase and you think you're getting a lot more with this, you're not. And for that reason, I'm putting in the C. I think a lot of people would be like, oh, I'm getting a whole bunch of new levels. I'm getting a whole, a whole bunch of new stuff, new features. You're not. You're getting a historical, something that was planned for, or at least proposed back in the day and never came to fruition. But really the differences from the original game aren't that high. The box, Casey's right, the box is amazing. The artwork in the box, you open it up and it's got like the maze on the inside. The production value is great. I just think that a lot of people might purchase this not thinking, like not being aware of what it is, and would be disappointed, and that's why it's in the C. Very well executed. If you're a fan of Lock and Chase, if you're a fan of the Intellivision, and you want this piece of history on a cartridge, absolutely go and buy it. I don't say it's bad. Yes, Casey said it does control a little better. But it is still Lock and Chase. So that's going to be in C tier for me. Lode Runner. So this was, if I'm not mistaken, a January release from Blah Blah Woof Woof, but it is now an Intellivision Collector property, even though obviously Intellivision Collector does not own the Lode Runner IP. Lode Runner is a fantastic game. And actually, I'm going to slide Space Panic up here too, because they're very similar. Lode Runner is a great game. I am, again, not great at it. Any of these maze games, and Lode Runner and Space Panic, although they're considered climbing games or like among the first platformers, or digging, some people even call them digging games or ladder games. They're really kind of in that maze game thing where you're maneuvering around a screen trying to accomplish something while bad guys try to get you. So with Lode Runner, you have to collect the gold bars and exit the level. And you can dig and trap the guys that are chasing you. You can dig and sometimes they'll fall through and die. The levels can get really, really hard. There's something like 151 levels, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they're all in the Intellivision game, because Lord knows I haven't been able to get past the first 15 or so. I need to play it some more, but Lode Runner gets an A from me. One of the most important things when you're doing a port is picking what to port. And Lode Runner was a great choice. Another great choice is Space Panic. Now, if you were to sit down and play Space Panic, with Lode Runner being the more popular franchise, you would think, oh, Space Panic is a ripoff of Lode Runner. But actually, it's the other way around. Space Panic came out before Donkey Kong. Space Panic came out, if I'm not mistaken, in 1980. And it is very similar to Lode Runner. There's platforms with ladders, and you run around, except for in Space Panic, you're not collecting gold bars, you're not collecting, you're not trying to find the exit. You are actively trying to kill the aliens that are chasing you. So you can dig a hole, and then you can fill it back in. I really don't know which one of these two I like better. So they both go at A for me. If you're really tight on budget, I can't really recommend one over the other. Look at footage of both of them and, figure out which one you think looks better. They both play great. Lode Runner is certainly a little more complicated, but I can't pick one over the other. I love them both. Hello, Bart. How's it going? Better late than never? Yes, it is better late than never. Parsec. Might piss some people off with this one. Because I know, for the people who love Parsec, they love Parsec. This was a computer game from the early 80s, and it was on like the ZX Spectrum and other microcomputers. And I don't like it. I seriously don't like it. Bad guys come at you one at a time, and you have to, basically it tells you what's coming. The bad guy flies in, you shoot it. Depending on what type of enemy it is, it'll have a certain pattern. So once you memorize that, no big deal. Then you fly through like this asteroid phase, which I learned that if you just fly really low, 99% of them dodge you, and then you just kind of go up and down when one comes at the bottom. And then you have this really annoying stage where you go and have to land, or not land, but fly through this little thing to refuel. And I don't like it. I think the port is fine. The original port, the actual physical copy that I have, has a bug where you can't pass a certain point. I think it just keeps going on forever and ever and ever and ever. But that bug was fixed and released. If you love Parsec, great, pick up this game. If you don't already love Parsec, sorry, that's our first D. It'll probably be our only D. I don't think it belongs on a cartridge. Again, personal opinion. If you think this is an S, power to you. We can still be friends. But Parsec, for me, is a D. Penguin Land. Penguin Land is a port of a game that was on multiple systems. I knew it most from the Master System. Intellivision Gamer says S for Parsec. We disagree, but I like you anyway, Casey. Will I do this in the future with other publishers? I like these ranking videos. I'd love to. The fact of the matter is, I'd love to do an Intellivision Revolution one. I'd love to do one for Cote Gamers. I haven't played all their games. I have something like 30 Intellivision Revolution releases. And that isn't even half of them, I don't think. And I don't think it's fair for me to rank games that I haven't played. But maybe I rank the ones that I do have. That's a possibility. And I can create tier lists for that. Steve Jones says Parsec was on the TI-99, the Texas Instrument. Most popular game for that system. I don't doubt it. I've played a good amount of TI-99 games, and most of them suck, at least from my opinion. And so, I can understand how if you had a really low-powered computer from the early 1980s and you got Parsec and you're like, oh, this is awesome. For me, it ain't. And, you know, I don't apologize for my opinions, but I do preface them. And it's not a badly made game, but it's not even one of those just not for me games. It's like I actively don't like it. And I would say probably it's the only one that I actively don't like. Getting back to Penguin Land. Penguin Land, I'm familiar with it from the Master System. It is a great version. It's a puzzle game at heart, but it's got action elements. You've got to protect your egg from, I think, this gopher or whatever that's chasing you, as well as polar bears and other dangerous things. And also, you can't make it fall too far. I like Penguin Land. I don't love Penguin Land, but the port is very well done. The graphics are great, the music are great. And if you press 9 at the title menu, your egg is invulnerable. You can still lose levels because you can dig yourself to a point where you can't dig anymore. But that makes it a lot more approachable. I would say Penguin Land is A tier. It's missing something, for me anyway, to be S tier, but it's an A tier game. Poker Risque. Mr. Baseman has been dreading this. I'm sure Retro Bliss is dreading this. This game is an homage to those games that you would get usually on the computer in the 80s, where it's strip poker, and you'd kind of titter, and you're like, oh, I see little 8-bit boobies. Fat Boys Gaming and Nonsense says, what's up, and everyone, hope you're all doing well. We survived the hurricane. I'm glad you survived the hurricane, Fat Boy. And yes, please hit the like button. Poker Risque. So the thing about it is, like the Mystique games from the 80s, they all sucked. Like Beat 'em and Eat 'em sucks. Custer's Revenge sucks. Bachelor Party sucks. They're not good games, but you're all kind of like, tee-hee-hee. The problem that I have with Poker Risque is there's a really good poker game in there. And it's got that music, and it evokes everything. So I am going to say that if you can put up with having to hide it from your kids, and you can put up with your spouse rolling their eyes, Poker Risque is B tier for me. It's a good poker game. Yeah, it really is a good poker game. Space Bandits. Okay, this is a cool one because this is a brand new one. This was supposed to be a blah blah woof woof release, but it is now released by Intellivision Collector. I was a playtester on this one. I love Space Bandits. It's not graphically impressive. It doesn't have cutscenes. It doesn't have awesome music, but the gameplay is just so good. You're moving around trying to collect these crystal things. I think they're crystals. And eventually, like, if you don't collect them fast enough, they become irradiated and you can't get them. But you're also dodging enemies that are trying to go around. And it's kind of like, and you've got ladders to go down, but it's a 3D perspective where you go, deeper and deeper into the environment. If it had maybe some cutscenes and music, it'd be easy S tier for me. It's an A+, but I'll put it with the A tier. I highly recommend Space Bandits, and it is available now. If you are purchasing a physical copy from Intellivision Collector, this is I should also note this. He is on summer vacation until July 22nd. So they won't be shipped until after that. But if you're buying a ROM copy, they will be delivered instantly because that's all automated. The show must go on. Easy S tier for me. So I think it was called like Mr. Chin or something back in the day, was this plate spinning game. And I did a review recently, I think a week ago, on a Atari game called Dishaster, which is a plate spinning game. Both of those are not good games. The Show Must Go On is awesome. So you have to, it's a plate spinning game. You got to collect the plates, put them on top of the pole, spin and have them spinning. And if they get too slow, they'll fall off. So if you see them getting slow, you got to go back to that pole and spin it some more. And the goal is to get plates on top of all of the poles in the level. And I see all that dirty talk in the chat. Mr. Chin. But now you have to do all this while an opposing joker, like you're a jester, and an opposing jester is trying to straight up murder you. And he murders you with knives, throwing knives. There are bats that come and like take your plates. I hate those guys. He's got like fireballs that he throws at you that like light up the ground. And you not only have to get poles up and keep them all spinning and move back, you know, get the one that's about to fall here and then get back up. But it's got this really cool scoring mechanic where you have an audience. You're actually performing and you're trying to impress the king. And the audience will change colors based on whether or not they're entertained. And so things that entertain them is you dodging a knife that's thrown, or you jumping, or, you know, making a show of it. You can't just play it as like, oh, I got this plate, this plate, this plate, done, ta-da. The crowd's not going to be super impressed with you. You've got to make a show of it. And so all those extra little bits, the show must go on. Love, love, love the show must go on. If you want 99 lives, press 9 on the keypad at the menu, and that gives you 99 lives. Vanguard. Vanguard was the first release from Intellivision Collector. It is a straight port of the, I believe it's a straight port of the 5200 version of the game. I like Vanguard. It's not one of my favorite games, but I like Vanguard. It's definitely a good version of Vanguard. It controls well. I like it a lot. I think Vanguard is a solid B tier. Is it, especially considering that it's a port of the 5200 game, and a lot of people find the 5200 to be not very approachable because of the controllers. I think, now 5200 is a very good version of the game, but again, it's not a very approachable shooter, approachable system. So I think it absolutely warrants a cartridge release. Yeah, so I'll put that at B tier. Chris Walker says, the only game to take you to the Rainbow Zone. Unless it's Mario Kart, then you can play Rainbow Road, which one would presume is in a Rainbow Zone. X Rally. So this is a port, obviously, of Rally X, and it's an excellent port. It includes everything. It's got the radar. It's got the bonus levels. It's got, yes, Jolt, the Intellivision version just does have the Gond at the end of each cavern or tunnel. It's an excellent version. It has one drawback, and that is particularly with the vertical scrolling, and I think this has in part to do because your radar is a fully functioning radar. It's a little choppy. Does it take away enough, Yes, Mr. Postal, if you watched my my Vanguard review, I recreate that commercial as my intro. Is it enough? Because I like X Rally. And yes, as Casey mentions, this was Sergio's first game, and it's really impressive as a first game. Is that stuttering enough to drop it from A to B? No. X Rally gets an A. It is a solid port. I get used to the scrolling. It can be a little jarring at first. I would certainly understand if you said that the scrolling stutter drops it for you. But for me, I think X Rally is an A tier game. And so there you go. That is my Intellivision Collector rating list, which includes the Blah Blah Woof Woof games, which again are Lode Runner, Fox's Quest, Buck Rogers, and Parsec. Oh, and Space Bandits. We got 3 S tier here, and we got 5 A tier. Good solid library from Intellivision Collector.